go look for techniques and those techniques don't work. So one has to first know that there are clinical trials on many, many different areas of mind body which show that these things work. Now I couldn't care less even if it was an illusion. The fact of the matter is we know from research that it is possible to live healthy, to prolong your life, to turn the clock back on your cancer and your blood pressure and your diabetes. All of that is doable. It's absolute fact. We also know a person who abuses his body, gulping down burgers and fries every day, have a massive heart attack at the age of 52. You do postmortem, you make slices of their heart and coronary arteries. They are plugged. You look into their coronary, into their carotid. There is no passage left for the blood to go into the brain because they're completely blocked with the plaque. Now you can't argue with me that that was not avoidable, because now we have research on other individuals who watch what they do, who watch their behavior, who watch their diet, who watch their thought processes, and they are very healthy. There is absolutely no doubt about that. So let's not worry too much about that illusion. It is very well known that we can change our destiny, we can change our health, our future. It's been confirmed beyond the shadow of a doubt. So that is going to be the very foundation of our discussions. Now, you always wonder, okay, that's enough about the brain. How about the mind? What does mind have to do with the brain? What is mind? Anybody knows what mind is? Anybody can define that for me? Mind is a very generic term where we refer to, the scientists will say, mind is everything that the brain does. 5 words. So we refer to mind, basically, correctly said so, to our planning, decision making, imagination, ideas, thought processes, memory, emotional intelligence, consciousness, and the subconsciousness of our awareness. Our awareness of the environment and the interaction, the sensory and motor inputs, all of that put together, we call it mind, basically. That's the understanding most of us have. But the most important part of mind is consciousness, if you think about it. Because if there was no consciousness, will there be any mind then? That's the very foundation of mind. Without being conscious of our environment, without being able to interact with the environment, all of a sudden everything else evaporates. There will be no memories. Memories are based on how we remember our childhood, remember our experiences, remember the smells that we had at some time. When we have images of the beauty of nature and our surroundings and our families and relationships and love and hatred, all those things are inputs that come into our bodies from the environment and make us conscious human beings. Some of these things go into the subconscious mind, some sort of get forgotten, they are still there but into the unconscious mind, and some that you are aware of on a regular basis, what we call the conscious part of our awareness. But nonetheless, it is awareness. If there was no awareness, then there will be no mind. Therefore, the word consciousness deserves some special discussion. This is something else that has bothered humanity and philosophers and thinkers and scientists since the dawn of ages. Let me stay on course and do not deviate from discussion. So let me see what I like to say next. Otherwise, I can very easily go off the tangent. Consciousness, when you use the word consciousness, you open up the Pandora's box. Welcome to the Pandora's box. I can try to give you a summary of what people have been thinking since the last 5,000 years about this problem. In all cultures, all civilizations, all religions, the Semitic religions, the Western religions, the Eastern religions, they have ideas. And why do I say it's opening up the Pandora's box? Because views change from one organized religion to another, from one philosopher to another. So what do we do in a situation like that? Where does that lead us? It's a big problem. If you go as far back as you can and look at where is the oldest ideas or ancient cultures where this kind of thing was discussed first, you really have to, hate to bring up some Hinduism, but we have to mention that because to complete the story. So the oldest literature runs from 5,000 years ago to about 1,000, from 5,000 to 3,000 years ago, when all these, nobody knows who wrote these Upanishads. There are about 250 of them. And Vedas, 4 Vedas were also written about that time. Nobody knows who wrote them. They were probably first oral tradition, just like at once upon a time maybe the Hebrew Bible was an oral tradition, and then somebody sat down and wrote the stories, biblical stories. So nobody knows the origins of these stories. In one of the Upanishads there's a story, and Upanishads are notorious about this kind of discussion. They are philosophical treatises. This is all they talk about. Obviously these hermits, these rishis and munis sitting under the tree, that's what they did, and nothing better to do. So they sit there and they have disciples come in, and these were the teachers. There were no universities. What was the education for thousands of years before the modern era? It was all about religion. When you talk about education, it's about religion, whether it's West or East. That's what education was all about. So there is a student, his name is Swetaketu, funny name, Sanskrit name. So he comes to this rishi, who is the teacher, the master, every year, and this teaching by rishis was exclusive society. Ordinary people didn't qualify to listen to that kind of discussion. So each year this student comes, his name is Swetaketu, and the master give him a pot of metal which has water in it. So you can see your image in that water because there were no mirrors at that time. So he asks Swetaketu, look in here and tell me what you see. And Swetaketu looks up at it and he says, that's me. That's Swetaketu. He says, okay, go back, come next year. You don't yet qualify. So he keeps rejecting him each year. What he was really trying to say is, he wants him to say, what I look in there is my body. It's not me. It's not I. So he's referring to a phenomenon which is separate from your body, what some people will call consciousness nowadays. So who is this I? Who is me? Is it my arms? Is it my head? Is it my brain? Is it my entire body? When I look in the mirror, what do I look at? That this problem has been haunting different cultures for thousands of years. And you can look at almost any culture and you will see that. And on the West, the Greeks, Aristotle was the first one who kind of really got into that. Ideas of dualism were suggested, where most religions to this date believe that there are two entities in the universe. One is the material world and one is consciousness. So there is the mind and the body. They are two different things, and the mind is the mind that guide the material world. So Aristotle gave a lot of those ideas, which Saint Augustine picked up on that, the famous Catholic or Christian theologian, you can say, in the 3rd century after Christ. And then other people like Anselm in the 11th century, he was the archbishop and a monk. He wrote 2 famous books. He picked up on that idea. Then St. Thomas Aquinas came and he criticized him. He said he's wrong about everything. So everybody has a little bit different ideas. The philosopher Immanuel Kant comes in at that time. And then about the 15th century, a famous mathematician who was primarily known as a philosopher's name is René Descartes. How many of you are Catholics here, if I may ask? I'm just curious. Okay. So René Descartes is one of the big guys of the Catholic Church. Actually, St. Augustine is much bigger, but he's from an academic viewpoint, he's respected. And he said, I'm making big jumps because otherwise we will never finish. So he said, it's Latin words cogito ergo sum, which means I think, therefore I am. So what is he trying to say? He said, I am, therefore I exist. If I was not there, then I could not exist. Does it make sense? So he's trying to say that what is I is different from what you are looking at. Not I am, therefore I think. That's the opposite view. That's the materialistic view, which says I am, therefore I think. In other words, if I did not exist, this body did not exist, if the brain was not there, then I could not think. You see the difference? It's quite the opposite. So what René Descartes said is, I think, therefore I am. And he wrote a book on meditations. That's what he talks about. So if you were to analyze all this literature, the last 5,000 years, it all sounds good, it's wonderful. There's a problem though. The problem is that whose view do you want to take? Do you want to describe soul and mind as the Hebrews believe it, or the Christians, or the Muslims, or the Mormons, or the Jehovah's Witnesses, or the Hindus, or the Buddhists? Because some of them are similar, some are dissimilar, some agree somewhat, some agree a lot, others disagree, and yet others completely opposite views. So what's the best approach? Should we take the Christian perspective because there are 2 billion Christians in this world? Will that be fair? Is the majority rules? Shall we deal with a democratic process here, or we want to really understand the issue? Or maybe we should not talk about Christians. Take the next category, the Muslims, who are 1.4 billion in this world. That's a big enough number. There are 1 billion Hindus. It is true, right there, 4.5 billion out of the 6.8 billion people on this planet, they disagree about things. So we have a problem, but at the same time we cannot ignore them either, in the sense that what are you going to do? You're going to be like Richard Dawkins, tell them how stupid they are, that they don't believe in evolution, that they believe in, they are deluded.